When billionaire CEO Victoria Hale collapsed in the middle of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant, her entire empire watched in horror as the board of directors reached for their phones, not to call for help, but to call an emergency meeting to remove her. Her young son screamed for his mother while her assistant stood frozen, more concerned with optics than her life. But the man who saved her wasn't a doctor from her world of wealth and privilege. He was the shabby single father her security had tried to throw out minutes earlier. The one the entire restaurant had mocked for cutting his daughter's pasta with worn hands and tired eyes. In 60 seconds, Ryan Cole would do what Victoria's billions couldn't: save her life, protect her son, and dismantle a corporate coup with nothing but the truth. This is the story of the night power learned it was never really in charge. If you want to see how a janitor's hands can rebuild an empire, stay until the end. And let me know what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Hit that like button, and let's begin. The reservation at Aurelius had been made 6 months in advance. Victoria Hale didn't wait for tables. Tables waited for her. But even she had to plan ahead for Manhattan's most exclusive dining room, where a single meal cost more than most people earned in a month, and the wait list read like a Fortune 500 directory. She stepped out of her black Mercedes S-Class into the cool October evening, her Valentino heels clicking against the sidewalk with the precision of a metronome. The restaurant's facade glowed with warm amber light, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering glimpses of crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths that seemed to float in the carefully controlled atmosphere inside. "Mom, do we have to?" Noah asked from beside her, his small hand reluctant in hers. Victoria looked down at her 7-year-old son. He wore a tailored blazer that cost more than the average wedding dress, his dark hair combed with the exactness her stylist had achieved that morning. He looked perfect. He looked miserable. "Yes, we have to," she said, her voice carrying the same tone she used in boardroom negotiations. "The Hendersons are important clients. You'll sit quietly, eat what's served, and speak only when spoken to, understood?" Noah's shoulders slumped. "Yes, ma'am. Ma'am." Her own son called her ma'am half the time. Victoria pushed the observation away as they approached the entrance, where a doorman in white gloves opened the brass-handled door with a slight bow. Inside, Aurelius was exactly as Victoria expected. Hushed conversations, the gentle clink of silverware against fine china, and the kind of studied elegance that took an army of staff to maintain. The maitre d' approached immediately, his smile professionally warm but not quite reaching his eyes. "Ms. Hale, what an honor. Your table is ready in the VIP section. Right this way, please." They followed him through the main dining room, past tables of designer suits and evening gowns, past conversations about quarterly earnings and summer homes in the Hamptons. Victoria noticed the subtle glances, the slight nods of recognition. Everyone knew who she was. At 34, she was the youngest CEO in her industry, the woman who'd turned her late father's struggling tech company into a billion-dollar empire in just 5 years. Forbes called her ruthless. Wall Street called her brilliant. Her employees called her terrifying. She preferred all three to being called weak. The VIP section was separated from the main dining room by an elegant screen of frosted glass and dark wood. More private, more exclusive. The Hendersons were already seated, champagne flutes in hand, but Noah had stopped walking. "Noah," Victoria said sharply, tugging his hand. He didn't move. His attention was fixed on something in the main dining room, his eyes wide with an expression Victoria couldn't immediately identify. She followed his gaze. At a small table near the window, not quite corner placement, not quite central, sat a man and a little girl. The girl couldn't have been more than 5, with wild curls barely contained by a pink headband and a dress that looked homemade. The man wore jeans and a button-down shirt that had seen better days, the cuffs slightly frayed, the collar not quite crisp. He was cutting her pasta. It was such a simple act, so ordinary, yet Noah stared as if witnessing something miraculous. The man's hands moved carefully, patiently, cutting the linguine into smaller pieces while the little girl chattered animatedly about something that made him smile, a real smile, the kind that transformed his whole face. "Mom, look," Noah whispered. "He's helping her eat." Victoria felt something uncomfortable twist in her chest. "That's nice, sweetheart. Now come on, the Hendersons are—" "Can I say hi?" No, we have dinner to... Please? Noah looked up at her with those eyes that were so much like his father's, before Marcus had died and left her alone with a 2-year-old and a company on the verge of collapse. She looks nice. I just want to say hi. Every instinct Victoria had developed over 5 years of corporate warfare told her to say no, to maintain the separation between her world and that one, to keep moving toward the VIP section where people who mattered waited. But Noah was looking at that little girl the way other children looked at puppies in pet store windows, with pure, uncomplicated longing. 1 minute, Victoria heard herself say. 1 minute, and then we join the Hendersons. Noah's face lit up in a way that made Victoria realize how rarely she saw him genuinely happy. He pulled her toward the table before she could reconsider. The man noticed them approaching and his expression shifted, not quite defensive but cautious in a way Victoria recognized. It was the look of someone used to being judged, preparing for impact. Hi, Noah said brightly to the little girl. I'm Noah. What's your name? The girl's face broke into a huge smile. I'm Mia. Do you like pasta? Daddy's cutting mine because the pieces are too big, and I'm not allowed to use a knife yet, because last time I almost cut my finger, but it was an accident and... Mia, breathe, the man said gently, but his eyes never left Victoria. He was assessing her the same way she assessed everyone, cataloging, calculating, determining threat level. Up close, Victoria could see the weariness etched around his eyes, the kind that came from too many responsibilities and not enough sleep. But there was something else there too, a steadiness, a quiet strength that seemed at odds with his worn clothing and uncertain position. I'm sorry to interrupt your dinner, Victoria said, the words automatic and professional. My son wanted to say hello. It's no interruption, the man replied. His voice was measured, controlled. I'm Ryan Cole. This is my daughter Mia. Victoria Hale. She saw the flicker of recognition in his eyes. Of course he knew who she was. Everyone did. Can I sit with you? Noah asked Mia, already halfway into the empty chair before Victoria could object. Mia clapped her hands. Yes. Daddy, can he? Please? Ryan looked at Victoria, and in that moment, she saw him making the same calculation she'd made 1,000 times, weighing politeness against protection, determining if this interaction would help or hurt the person he was trying to shield. If it's all right with his mother, Ryan said carefully. Victoria should have said no. The Hendersons were waiting. This was inappropriate, crossing boundaries that existed for good reasons. But Noah was already engaged in animated conversation with Mia about something to do with dinosaurs, and he looked more alive than she'd seen him in months. I suppose I could spare a few minutes, Victoria said. She pulled out the remaining chair and sat, acutely aware of how out of place she looked. Her Chanel suit probably cost more than everything on this table combined. The plates, the glasses, the bottle of mid-range wine Ryan had ordered. She could feel eyes on them from across the restaurant, could practically hear the whispers starting. So, Ryan said, breaking the awkward silence, do you come to Aurelius often? It was such a mundane question, the kind strangers ask to fill space. But coming from him, in his worn shirt at his modest table, it felt loaded with subtext. First time, Victoria lied smoothly. She'd been here a dozen times. You? The corner of Ryan's mouth twitched. Also first time. Mia's been asking about this place for months. She saw it in some movie. The princess one, Mia interjected, where they eat fancy pasta and wear pretty dresses. You look like a princess, Noah said seriously. Your dress is really nice. Mia beamed. My daddy made it. He's the best sewer in the whole world. Ryan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I'm learning, he said quietly. Victoria understood immediately. Single father, limited means, doing whatever it took to give his daughter what she asked for. She'd seen the dynamic before in her employees, the ones who worked overtime, who never took vacation, who carried the weight of dependence on their shoulders like Atlas carrying the world. It's a beautiful dress, Victoria said, surprising herself with the sincerity in her voice. Thank you, Ryan replied, his guard lowering fractionally. The children had moved on to comparing their favorite foods, their voices rising with excitement. Noah was telling Mia about the time he went to Paris and had the best hot chocolate ever, while Mia countered with her father's homemade mac and cheese being better than anything in the whole universe. He doesn't get out much, Victoria found herself saying. Noah, I mean, his schedule is structured. Structured, Ryan repeated, and something in his tone made Victoria defensive. He has tutors, activities, opportunities that most children— I didn't mean anything by it, Ryan interrupted gently. Just that I understand. Structure can be important. Safety, too. But the way he said it made Victoria wonder what he was really saying. That her son's carefully controlled life was a cage? That privilege was its own kind of poverty? Before she could respond, a waiter appeared at Ryan's elbow. Not their waiter, someone else. Someone whose expression carried barely concealed disdain. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to keep your voice down. Some of our other guests have expressed concern. Ryan's face went carefully blank. We're not being loud. Nevertheless, this is a refined establishment. We have standards to maintain. Victoria felt anger flash through her, hot and immediate. She knew exactly what was happening. She'd seen it before, though usually directed at others. The judgment. The assumption that someone in worn jeans at a modest table didn't belong, regardless of the reservation in his name or the money in his wallet. Is there a problem? Victoria asked, her voice dropping into the register she used when firing executives. The waiter's eyes widened as he realized who she was. Ms. Hale, No, of course not. I was simply— You were harassing a paying customer for no reason other than your own prejudice. I suggest you return to your section and reconsider your career choices. The waiter paled and retreated immediately. Around them, Victoria could feel the attention of nearby tables, the subtle shift in atmosphere. She just made a scene. She never made scenes. You didn't have to do that, Ryan said quietly. Yes, I did. Their eyes met, and Victoria saw something shift in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or reassessment. Whatever wall he'd had up lowered another few inches. Thank you, he said. Mom! Noah's voice cut through the moment. Mia invited me to her birthday party. Can I go, please? Victoria looked at her son's hopeful face, then at Mia's equally excited one, then at Ryan's carefully neutral expression. We'll see, she said, the automatic parent response when the real answer was no, but you didn't want to disappoint them in public. Noah's face fell slightly, but he nodded. He understood the code. We'll see meant no in their house. Noah's birthday is in December, Victoria heard herself adding. If Mia would like to come, she'd be welcome. Why had she said that? What was she doing? Ryan looked equally surprised, but Mia was already squealing with delight. Really? A birthday party? Daddy, can I? We'll see, Ryan echoed, and his we'll see carried the same weight Victoria's had. The understanding passed between them. Two parents, two different worlds, both protecting their children from disappointments they couldn't prevent. Your table is ready, Ms. Hale. The maitre d' appeared, his timing impeccable and his interruption deliberate. The Hendersons have been asking for you. Victoria should have stood immediately, should have collected Noah and maintained the boundary between this encounter and her real life. But something kept her seated. Tell them I'll be there in 5 minutes, she said. The maitre d' hesitated, clearly unused to being dismissed, then nodded and retreated. You don't have to stay, Ryan said. I know you have obligations. So do you. Yet here you are, in a restaurant that's way too expensive, wearing a shirt that could use pressing because your daughter asked. Ryan's eyebrows rose. That's pretty direct. I'm known for it. I've heard. They regarded each other for a moment, and Victoria had the strangest sensation of being truly seen. Not as the CEO, not as the billionaire, not as the ice queen the tabloids love to write about, just as a person sitting at a table trying to navigate an unexpected moment. Daddy, look! Mia pointed at something outside the window, a taxi with unusual decorations. It has flowers on it. Ryan turned to look, and as he did, his sleeve rode up slightly, revealing a tattoo on his inner wrist. Victoria caught a glimpse of what looked like medical insignia before he adjusted his cuff. You were in healthcare, Victoria said. It wasn't a question. Ryan's hand stilled. How did you? The tattoo. And the way you cut Mia's food. Precise. Practiced. Like you've done surgical prep. For a long moment, Ryan didn't respond. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight that suggested old pain, old choices. I was a trauma surgeon, combat medicine. I gave it up. Why? Because some things matter more than prestige. He looked at Mia as he said it, and Victoria understood. She'd made the opposite choice. Prestige over presence, empire over intimacy. Her son called her ma'am and asked permission to smile. Noah, Victoria said quietly, we need to go. Noah's face fell. But Mom, the Hendersons are waiting. You know we can't keep them waiting. Ryan stood immediately. Of course, thank you for letting him visit with Mia. It meant a lot to her. It meant a lot to him too, Victoria replied, surprising herself again with honesty. As they walked toward the VIP section, Noah looked back 3 times at the table where Mia waved enthusiastically. Victoria could feel the weight of eyes following them, could hear the whispers starting, speculation about why Victoria Hale had sat with some nobody in worn jeans. The VIP section felt colder than it had before. The Hendersons rose to greet her, all polished smiles and firm handshakes. Noah slid into his chair silently, his animation from moments before completely gone. Victoria, so glad you could make it, Richard Henderson said. We were beginning to wonder if you'd forgotten about us. Never, Victoria replied smoothly. Just handling a small matter. Through the frosted glass partition, she could see Ryan and Mia's table, could see the gentle way he listened as she talked, the patient way he waited for her to finish her thoughts. Shall we order? Catherine Henderson suggested. I've heard the truffle risotto is exceptional. As they perused menus and discussed wine pairings, Victoria found her attention drifting back to that table. Noah sat silently beside her, answering when spoken to, eating what was placed before him, the perfect child, the perfect stranger. Halfway through the appetizer course, there was a commotion from the main dining room. Victoria looked up to see a small crowd gathering near the entrance. Someone was speaking loudly, not quite yelling, but close. I don't care if he has a reservation. Look at him. He doesn't belong here. Victoria's blood went cold. Through the partition, she could see Ryan standing at his table, Mia behind him, her small face frightened. A man in an expensive suit stood facing Ryan, his posture aggressive. That's Marcus Thornton, Richard Henderson said, noticing her attention. Hedge fund manager. Bit of a hothead, but brilliant with numbers. Victoria was already standing. Excuse me. Victoria, where are you? But she was already moving, Noah scrambling to keep up with her. As they approached, she could hear the confrontation more clearly. People like you ruin the atmosphere, Thornton was saying. This is a place for serious people, not for what? Ryan's voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. Finish that sentence. For people who can actually afford to be here without counting pennies. I paid for my reservation same as you. With what? Food stamps? The words hung in the air like poison. Around them, other diners watched with a mixture of horror and fascination. The staff stood frozen, clearly uncertain how to handle a situation where both parties were technically customers. That's enough, Victoria said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Thornton turned, his expression shifting when he recognized her. Victoria, I didn't realize you were here. This doesn't concern you. When you're harassing someone in my presence, it concerns me. Harassing? I'm simply pointing out that this establishment has standards, which apparently don't include basic human decency. Thornton's face flushed. Now wait just a... No, you wait. Victoria stepped between him and Ryan, her heels bringing her eye level with Thornton. You're going to return to your table. You're going to finish your overpriced meal, and you're going to remember that wealth doesn't grant you the right to humiliate strangers. Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? Victoria countered. Because I know who you are, Marcus. I know about the insider trading investigation that got buried by your father's connections. I know about the sexual harassment settlements your firm paid out last year. I know exactly who you are. Thornton went pale. Around them, phones had materialized, cameras pointing, recording. The story would be on financial blogs within the hour. He's not worth it, Ryan said quietly from behind her. But Victoria was already committed. She'd made her choice when she stood up. Anyone who has a problem with this family's presence here can take it up with me. I'm Victoria Hale, CEO of Hale Technologies, and I'm having dinner with my friend Ryan and his daughter Mia. The word friend surprised everyone, possibly including Victoria herself. Thornton looked between them, his calculation visible. Taking on Victoria Hale publicly was career suicide. "This is ridiculous," he muttered, but he was already backing away. The crowd dispersed slowly, conversations resuming, though the energy in the room had shifted. Victoria turned to find Ryan staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "So you keep saying." "I mean it. You just made a scene in front of half of Manhattan's financial elite to defend someone you met 20 minutes ago." "I defended someone who was being treated unfairly. That's different." "Is it?" Mia tugged on Ryan's sleeve. "Daddy, I want to go home. Everyone's looking at us." Victoria's heart cracked a little at the fear in the child's voice. This was her fault. She'd escalated the situation, drawn more attention, made things worse in her attempt to make them better. "I'm sorry," she said to Mia. "I didn't mean to scare you." "You were really brave," Noah said suddenly, looking at Ryan. "That man was being mean, and you didn't even yell at him." "Yelling doesn't solve much," Ryan replied. "My mom yells sometimes when people mess up at her company." Victoria felt heat rise in her cheeks. "Noah, it's okay," Ryan said. "Sometimes leaders have to be loud to be heard." "Do you think that's true?" Noah asked. "That you have to be loud?" Ryan knelt down to Noah's level. "I think you have to be clear. Whether that's loud or quiet depends on the situation. But the most important thing is knowing what you're willing to stand for." Noah considered this with the seriousness only a 7-year-old could muster. "What do you stand for?" "Making sure my daughter knows she matters, that her happiness is worth more than what anyone else thinks." It was such a simple answer, but it landed in Victoria's chest like a stone. When was the last time she'd asked herself that question? What did she stand for beyond quarterly earnings and market dominance? "Ms. Hale," the maitre d' appeared again, his expression troubled. "I apologize for the disturbance. Mr. Thornton's behavior was unacceptable. I've asked him to leave." "Thank you. And I'd like to offer you and your party complimentary dessert. Anything you'd like." "That's generous, but I think my party has had enough excitement for one evening." Ryan was already gathering Mia's things, a worn backpack, a stuffed elephant with one ear hanging by threads. "We should go too. I'm sorry we caused such a disruption." "You didn't cause anything," Victoria said firmly. "Don't apologize for existing in a space you paid to occupy." Their eyes met again, and Victoria felt that same sensation of being truly seen, of seeing in return. This man who dressed his daughter in homemade clothes and chose her happiness over his career, who stood calm in the face of cruelty, he was more real than anyone she'd spoken to in years. "Victoria!" Richard Henderson called from the VIP section. "Is everything all right?" The spell broke. Victoria became aware again of where she was, who she was, what she was supposed to be doing. "I need to—" she started. "Go," Ryan said. "Your obligations." "Right, yes." Victoria hesitated, then pulled a business card from her clutch. "If you need anything, if there's any fallout from tonight." Ryan took the card, studying it for a moment. "Thank you, but I think we'll be fine." "Of course you will." They stood there awkwardly for another moment before Mia tugged on Ryan's hand. "Come on, Daddy, I'm tired." "Okay, Princess, let's go home." As they walked toward the exit, Noah pulled on Victoria's sleeve. "Mom, can we invite them to my party? Really invite them?" Victoria looked down at her son, who was watching Ryan and Mia leave with the same longing he'd shown earlier, the same hunger for something real, something warm, something that resembled the family connection she'd never managed to build for him. "We'll see," she said again. But this time, as she watched Ryan hold the door for his daughter, adjusting her jacket against the October chill with gentle hands and infinite patience, Victoria wondered if maybe, just maybe, "we'll see" could mean something different. Something like yes. The dinner with the Hendersons lasted another 90 minutes, but Victoria couldn't have recalled a single word of it afterward. She smiled at the right moments, nodded when appropriate, discussed market trends and acquisition strategies with the mechanical precision of someone operating on autopilot. Noah sat beside her in silence, pushing truffle risotto around his plate without eating. When they finally escaped to the car, the night air felt sharp and cleansing after the restaurant's controlled atmosphere. Noah climbed into the back seat without being told, buckling himself in with practiced efficiency. "Did you have a nice time?" Victoria asked, already knowing the answer. "It was fine." "Just fine." Noah looked out the window at the city lights blurring past. "The Hendersons talked about business the whole time. I like Mia better. She talked about dinosaurs and showed me how to make a napkin swan." Victoria glanced at him in the rearview mirror. "When did she show you that?" "When you were talking to her dad, before that mean man came." The memory of Marcus Thornton's face, twisted with contempt, flashed through Victoria's mind. She'd meant what she said. She knew exactly who he was, and she had the resources to make his life very difficult if she chose to. The question was whether defending Ryan Cole was worth making that kind of enemy. She thought of Ryan kneeling to Noah's level, speaking to him like he mattered, thought of Mia's homemade dress and Ryan's worn shirt and the quiet dignity with which he'd faced humiliation. Yes, it was worth it. "Mom?" Noah's voice was small. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why doesn't anyone ever smile at our table, like how Mia and her dad smile?" The question hit harder than Victoria expected. "We smile." "Not like that. Not like you're happy to be there." Victoria had no response to that. They drove the rest of the way home in silence. Their penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of a building in Tribeca, all floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist design. Victoria had hired an award-winning architect to create a space that made bold statements about success and taste. What she hadn't asked for, and what the space certainly didn't provide, was warmth. Noah went straight to his room without being told. Victoria poured herself a glass of wine and stood at the window, looking out over the city that had made her fortune. Somewhere out there, Ryan Cole was probably tucking Mia into bed, reading her a story, being present in a way Victoria had never quite mastered. Her phone buzzed. A text from her assistant, Margaret. "The Thornton incident is already trending. WSJ wants a comment, so does Forbes. How should I handle?" Victoria stared at the message. She could spin this a dozen different ways. Make herself the hero standing up for the common man, boost her public image, maybe even leverage it for positive press before the next board meeting. Or she could let it die quietly and hope Ryan's name didn't get dragged through the mud. "No comment," she typed back. "If anyone asks about the family I was with, their names are off the record. Make that very clear." Understood. Also, the board called an emergency meeting for Friday. They wanted to discuss leadership stability. Victoria's jaw tightened. They'd been looking for an excuse to challenge her authority for months, ever since she'd refused to compromise on the company's ethics policies to land a lucrative defense contract. Making a scene at Aurelius had just handed them ammunition. "Tell them I'll be there," she replied. She finished her wine and checked on Noah. He was already asleep, still wearing his blazer, his tablet open beside him showing search results for how to make napkin swans. Victoria closed the tablet, removed his jacket, and pulled the covers over him. For a moment, she just watched him sleep, trying to remember when he'd stopped looking peaceful and started looking resigned, even in dreams. The next morning arrived with its usual demands. Victoria was up at 5, in the gym by 5:30, showered and dressed by 6:15. She checked her phone over coffee and found 3 missed calls from her mother and a text from her brother, both asking about the restaurant incident. The story had made page 6. "Billionaire CEO defends mystery man in restaurant showdown," the headline read. The photo showed Victoria, face tight with anger, standing between Ryan and Thornton. Someone had zoomed in on Ryan's face, capturing his expression of quiet shock. Victoria's phone rang. Her mother. "I saw the news," Eleanor Hale said without preamble. "Who is he?" "Good morning to you too, Mother." "Don't deflect. Who is the man you very publicly championed last night?" "A parent having dinner with his daughter, who was being harassed by Marcus Thornton." Marcus Thornton, who manages $3 billion and whose family has been in finance for 4 generations. The same Marcus Thornton who has 2 sexual harassment settlements and an insider trading investigation that his daddy made disappear. Eleanor sighed. Victoria, I understand the impulse to defend someone vulnerable. I even applaud it. But you have a board meeting on Friday where they're going to question your judgment. This doesn't help. Maybe my judgment is exactly what they should question. Maybe we've all lost sight of what actually matters. What's gotten into you? Victoria looked at the photo again, at Ryan's face, at the fear in Mia's eyes, visible in the background. I met someone who reminded me that not everything is a strategic calculation. Everyone is a strategic calculation in your world, darling. That's how you've survived. After her mother hung up, Victoria sat in her pristine kitchen, surrounded by granite and stainless steel, and every luxury money could buy, and felt completely alone. Noah shuffled in around 7, still in his pajamas. Do I have tutoring today? Victoria checked her phone. Yes. Math at 9, then Mandarin at 11. Can I skip and just play? Play what? Noah shrugged. I don't know. Whatever kids play. The casual admission that her son didn't know how to simply play landed like a punch. We'll see, Victoria said, hating herself for the phrase. After your sessions, maybe we can do something fun. Like what? Victoria had no idea. Her calendar was packed with meetings, calls, reviews. She'd scheduled every minute of the next 3 weeks. We'll figure something out, she said. Noah nodded, unconvinced, and went to get ready for his day of structured excellence. Victoria made it to her office by 8. The Hale Technologies building rose 42 stories above Midtown, a monument to her father's legacy and her own ruthless efficiency. She took her private elevator to the top floor where her executive suite overlooked Central Park. Margaret was already at her desk outside Victoria's office. Morning, your 9 o'clock is here early. Tell them I'll be ready in 10 minutes. Also, this arrived for you. Margaret handed her a small envelope, hand-addressed with no return label. Victoria's name was written in neat, careful script. Inside was a simple card. Thank you for yesterday. You didn't have to stand up for strangers, but you did anyway. That meant more than you know. Mia made this for Noah. Beneath the message was a child's drawing of 2 stick figures holding hands, labeled Noah and Mia Friends. There was no signature, but Victoria knew it was from Ryan. She studied the drawing, the careful way Mia had colored inside the lines, the hearts she'd drawn around the figures. Everything okay? Margaret asked. Victoria realized she was smiling. Actually smiling. Yes, everything's fine. The morning passed in its usual blur of meetings and decisions. Victoria approved budgets, rejected proposals, negotiated contracts. She was good at this. The chess game of business, the careful calculation of risk and reward. But today, something felt off. Every decision felt hollow, every victory empty. At noon, she found herself searching the internet for Ryan Cole. There were dozens of Ryan Coles, a real estate agent in Phoenix, a college professor in Boston, a musician in Nashville. None of them matched the tired-eyed man who'd cut his daughter's pasta with surgical precision. She tried Ryan Cole trauma surgeon and found an article from 8 years ago about a decorated military doctor receiving honors for his work in Afghanistan. The photo showed a younger version of Ryan, clean-cut and confident, accepting an award. The caption mentioned his innovative trauma protocols that had saved countless lives. 3 years after that article, there was a brief obituary for Sarah Cole, beloved wife and mother, survived by her husband Ryan and daughter Mia. Nothing after that. No more awards, no more articles. It was as if Ryan Cole, the celebrated surgeon, had simply disappeared. Miss Hale, Margaret buzzed through. Your 2 o'clock is ready. Victoria closed the browser tab and returned to her scheduled life. But that evening, instead of working late as planned, she left the office at 6. She picked Noah up from his after-school program, another first. Usually the driver did it, and drove to a part of Brooklyn she'd never visited before. Where are we going? Noah asked. I'm not entirely sure, Victoria admitted. She parked on a street lined with brownstones, some well-maintained, others showing their age. Children played on stoops. Neighbors called greetings to each other. It was so different from their Tribeca neighborhood, where everyone was too busy or too important to acknowledge anyone else. Mom, what are we doing here? Good question. Victoria pulled out her phone and looked at the return address on the envelope Ryan had sent. It matched a building halfway down the block. I'm returning something, she said, surprising herself with the decision. They climbed the steps to a brownstone with a freshly painted door and window boxes that had been prepared for winter. Victoria rang the bell. Footsteps inside, then the door opened. Ryan stood there in jeans and a t-shirt, dish towel over his shoulder, surprise clear on his face. Victoria, how did you... The card you sent. The return address. She held up the envelope. Right. Of course. He stepped back. Do you want to come in? We don't want to intrude. Mia, Ryan called up the stairs. We have visitors. Thunder of small feet, then Mia appeared at the top of the stairs, her face lighting up when she saw Noah. You came! Daddy, they came! So I see. The apartment was small but immaculate, every surface clean, every item in its place. The furniture was old but well cared for, the kind of pieces bought secondhand and restored with patience. Photos covered one wall. Mia, at various ages, a woman who must have been Sarah, Ryan in his military uniform. I was just making dinner, Ryan said. Nothing fancy, spaghetti and meatballs. You're welcome to stay. Victoria almost declined automatically, but Noah was already following Mia to her room to see her toy collection, and something about the normalcy of it all, the cooking smells, the lived-in comfort, the casual invitation, made her say yes. That would be nice. Ryan gestured to the kitchen table. Have a seat. Can I get you something to drink? I have water, juice, or... He opened the refrigerator. One beer that's been in here since last summer. Water is fine. She sat at the small table while Ryan moved around the kitchen with easy efficiency. He didn't have the anxious energy of someone trying to impress her. He just cooked. I wanted to thank you, Victoria said, for the card and the drawing. Noah loved it. Mia insisted. She's been talking about him nonstop since yesterday. Noah, too. He asked me this morning if we could just play instead of doing his tutoring sessions. I realized I don't actually know what he likes to play. Ryan looked at her, no judgment in his expression, just understanding. It's hard, isn't it? Balancing everything. Is it? You seem to manage. Ryan laughed, but there was no humor in it. Manage is a generous term. Some days I feel like I'm barely holding it together with duct tape and prayer. But Mia is happy. Mia is 5. She's happy if she has mac and cheese and someone to read her bedtime stories. That's a low bar. Maybe we've overcomplicated what children need. Ryan stirred the sauce. What do you think they need? Victoria considered the question seriously. I don't know anymore. I thought I did. Structure, opportunity, exposure to excellence. But Noah is miserable, and I have no idea how to fix it. Maybe you're not supposed to fix it. Maybe you're just supposed to be there. I am there. I'm always there. Are you? Ryan's question was gentle but direct. Or are you present while thinking about the next meeting, the next deal, the next thing that needs your attention? Victoria wanted to argue, but the truth was too close to the surface. How do you do it? Be present, I mean. Ryan set the spoon down and turned to face her fully. I stopped believing that anything mattered more than her. My career, my reputation, other people's opinions, none of it was worth missing her childhood for. That's easy to say when your career was in medicine. You were saving lives. I'm just making money. Is that really what you think you do? Isn't it? Your company employs 6,000 people. You develop technology that makes communication accessible to people with disabilities. You refused a defense contract last year because you didn't want your products used for surveillance. That's not just making money. Victoria stared at him. How do you know about the defense contract? Ryan had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. I looked you up after yesterday. I wanted to understand who had stood up for me in a restaurant full of people who could make or break my reputation if I had one to break. And what did you find? That you're complicated, that you've built something impressive, that you're harder on yourself than you need to be. He paused. And that you lost your husband when Noah was 2. I'm sorry. I understand that kind of loss. The words hung between them, acknowledging the parallel pain they both carried. "How did you do it?" Victoria asked quietly. "Keep going after Sarah died?" Ryan was quiet for a long moment. "I didn't have a choice. Mia needed me, so I put one foot in front of the other until eventually I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was living again. But I had to let go of who I was before. The surgeon, the decorated officer, that person died with Sarah. I had to figure out who I was after." "And who is that?" "Mia's dad. Everything else is just details." Laughter erupted from Mia's room. Real, unself-conscious joy. Victoria couldn't remember the last time she'd heard Noah laugh like that. "You should see them," Ryan said. "They're building a blanket fort." They walked to Mia's doorway and found Noah and Mia draping sheets over chairs, creating an elaborate structure that covered half the room. Noah was directing the construction with the seriousness he usually reserved for his Mandarin lessons, while Mia added decorative touches, stuffed animals, fairy lights, drawings taped to the walls. "This is the castle," Noah explained to Victoria, "and we're the knights who protect it from dragons." "I'm a princess knight," Mia added, "because girls can be both." "What about me?" Ryan asked. "Can I be a knight too?" "You're the king," Mia decided, "and Miss Victoria is the queen." Victoria felt something crack open in her chest. When was the last time someone had invited her to play? When was the last time she'd done something with no agenda, no purpose beyond simple joy? "What do queens do in this game?" she asked. "Whatever they want," Mia said matter-of-factly. "That's what makes them queens." So Victoria found herself crawling into a blanket fort with her son, pretending to defend a castle against imaginary dragons while Ryan made sound effects and Mia narrated the epic battle. It was ridiculous. It was undignified. It was the most fun Victoria had had in years. When the timer went off for the pasta, Ryan extracted himself from the fort. "Dinner in 10 minutes. Knights and queens need to wash up." Over spaghetti and meatballs served on mismatched plates, the conversation flowed easily. Mia talked about her kindergarten class and her best friend Emma, who could do a cartwheel. Noah talked about the book he was reading and the science project he wanted to build. Victoria and Ryan exchanged glances that needed no words. Two parents watching their children simply be children. "This is really good," Victoria said, surprised by how much she meant it. "The sauce." "Family recipe. Sarah's grandmother. I had to call her mother and beg for it after. I'm glad you did." After dinner, Mia insisted on showing Noah her collection of rocks. "Because every rock has a story," Daddy says, while Victoria helped Ryan clean up. "You don't have to do that," Ryan said as she started drying dishes. "I want to. When was the last time I did something as normal as drying dishes?" They worked in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Ryan spoke again. "Can I ask you something? Why did you come here tonight?" "Really?" Victoria set down the dish towel and turned to face him. "Because your daughter drew a picture of her and my son holding hands, and it made me realize that Noah doesn't have friends. He has tutors and instructors and carefully selected playdate companions whose parents I'm trying to do business with. But he doesn't have someone who just likes him. He's a good kid. He's a lonely kid, and that's my fault." "It's not about fault, Victoria. It's about choices. You can make different ones." "Can I?" "I have a board meeting Friday where they're going to question my leadership because I defended you at a restaurant. My decisions don't just affect me. They affect thousands of employees, millions of dollars in investments." Ryan dried his hands and leaned against the counter. "What do you want me to say? That it's okay to sacrifice your son's happiness for your company's success?" "I can't tell you that. I'm not asking for permission. I'm asking for understanding." "Then understand this. Mia won't remember what toys I bought her or what school she went to. She'll remember if I was there, if I paid attention, if I made her feel like she mattered more than anything else in the world. That's what kids remember." Victoria felt tears threatening and fought them back. "I don't know how to be that person." "Sure you do. You were that person in the blanket fort 20 minutes ago." A crash from Mia's room made them both jump. They rushed in to find Noah and Mia covered in glitter, the container upended on the floor. "It was an accident," Mia said immediately. "We were making fairy dust, and it exploded." Ryan surveyed the damage. Glitter everywhere, on the floor, on the children, probably in places they wouldn't find for months. He sighed. Well, fairy dust is notoriously unstable. I've heard this happens to the best of us. You're not mad? Noah asked, clearly bracing for punishment. Mad? About an accident? No. Annoyed about cleaning up glitter for the next 6 months? Absolutely. But that's different. Victoria watched the way Ryan handled it, acknowledging the mess without making the children feel terrible, maintaining authority without crushing their spirits. It was so different from her own approach, which usually involved lectures about responsibility and consequences. I should help clean this up, Noah said quietly. We both should, Mia agreed. Good thinking, Ryan said. Let's grab the vacuum. By the time they'd finished cleaning, or at least made a valiant attempt, it was nearly 8. Victoria checked her watch, shocked to realize 3 hours had passed. We should go, she said reluctantly. It's a school night. Already? Noah's disappointment was obvious. Can they come back? Mia asked Ryan. Please? Ryan looked at Victoria, and in his expression, she saw understanding mixed with caution. He was protecting his daughter the same way she protected her son, from disappointments, from expectations that might not be met. If it's all right with Noah's mom, Ryan said carefully. All eyes turned to Victoria. She thought about her calendar, packed with obligations and meetings, and the careful choreography of her professional life. Thought about the board meeting on Friday, the scrutiny she was already under, the risks of appearing distracted or unfocused. Then she looked at Noah's face, hopeful in a way she rarely saw it. Yes, Victoria heard herself say. You can come back. The children cheered. Ryan smiled, and Victoria felt something shift inside her. A wall cracking, a door opening, a possibility emerging that she hadn't known existed. As they walked to the car, Noah slipped his hand into hers. Thanks, Mom. For what? For letting me have a friend. Victoria squeezed his hand, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. On the drive home, Noah talked the entire way about Mia's rock collection and the fort they'd built, and the fairy dust accident. He was animated, engaged, alive in a way Victoria realized she'd been missing. Can we invite them to my birthday party? Noah asked as they pulled into their building's garage. Really invite them, not just we'll see? Victoria thought about her planned birthday party, a catered affair at an exclusive venue with carefully selected guests and professional entertainment, the kind of party that made statements about status and taste. What if we did something different this year, she suggested, something smaller, more fun. Like what? I don't know. What would you want to do? Noah thought about it seriously. Can we build the biggest blanket fort ever and have a sleepover and maybe watch movies and eat pizza? It was so far from anything Victoria had ever planned that she almost dismissed it out of hand. But then she remembered the joy on Noah's face in that cramped bedroom, covered in glitter, defending an imaginary castle. We can absolutely do that, she said. Noah hugged her tight. You're the best mom ever. Victoria held her son and thought about Ryan's words, about being present, about what children remember. She thought about the choice she'd made at the restaurant to stand up for a stranger, and how that one decision had opened a door she hadn't known she needed to walk through. Her phone buzzed with a reminder about tomorrow's 7 a.m. conference call with Tokyo. Her email notification showed 43 unread messages. The board meeting loomed on Friday like a gathering storm. But tonight, for the first time in longer than she could remember, Victoria Hale went to bed not thinking about quarterly projections or market strategies or corporate politics. She thought about a little girl who believed girls could be princess knights, and a man who'd given up everything for his daughter's happiness, and the possibility that maybe, just maybe, she could learn to do the same. The rest of the week passed in a strange duality. Victoria maintained her usual schedule. Meetings, calls, decisions that moved millions of dollars and affected thousands of lives. But something fundamental had shifted in how she approached it all. She caught herself checking the clock not for the next appointment, but wondering if she could make it home in time to have dinner with Noah. She declined a networking event Thursday evening, citing a family commitment, and watched Margaret's eyebrows rise in surprise because Victoria Hale didn't have family commitments that superseded business opportunities. But Thursday night, she and Noah made homemade pizza together in their pristine kitchen, getting flour everywhere and laughing when the dough stuck to the ceiling. Noah talked about his day without being prompted, told her about a boy at school who'd shared his lunch, asked if they could have Mia over on the weekend. Let's see how Friday goes first, Victoria said, the board meeting looming in her mind like a thundercloud. Friday morning arrived with the weight of inevitability. Victoria dressed with extra care, a charcoal Tom Ford suit that communicated power without aggression, her mother's diamond earrings for confidence, heels that added 3 inches to her frame. Armor for battle, because that's what this meeting would be. The boardroom occupied the entire 42nd floor, with windows overlooking the city Victoria had conquered. 12 seats around an ebony table, each one filled with someone who thought they knew better than her how to run the company her father had built, and she had transformed. Richard Chen, her CFO and closest ally on the board, caught her eye as she entered. His slight nod told her he'd done his homework, counted the votes, prepared for the fight. "Good morning, gentlemen," Victoria said, taking her seat at the head of the table. There were 2 women on her board, but neither had shown up today. That told her everything she needed to know about how this would go. Victoria, James Morrison, the board chairman and her father's oldest friend, opened the meeting with false warmth. "Thank you for making time for us." "I always make time for the board, James. You know that." "Of course. Though your calendar has been rather full lately, we've noticed some changes in your availability." Victoria kept her expression neutral. "My availability for board matters has never wavered." "No, but your judgment might have." This came from David Sutton, a venture capitalist who'd been pushing for the defense contract Victoria had rejected. "The incident at Aurelius has raised some concerns. The incident where I defended a customer from harassment? The incident where you made a public spectacle that's damaged our reputation and given ammunition to our competitors. The Wall Street Journal ran a piece questioning whether you're losing focus. One journalist's speculation hardly constitutes—" "It's not just one journalist," Morrison interrupted. "We've received calls from investors concerned about your state of mind, making scenes in restaurants, defending random strangers, leaving the office early multiple days this week." So they'd been watching her. Victoria felt anger rise, but kept it controlled. "I've left the office early twice this week, both times after completing all urgent business. My performance metrics haven't changed. Revenue is up 18% year over year. Employee satisfaction scores are at an all-time high. Customer retention is—" "We're not questioning your past performance," Sutton said. "We're questioning your current stability. Emotional decision-making is a liability we can't afford." "Emotional decision-making," Victoria repeated slowly. "Is that what you call having principles?" "We call it a distraction. You're the face of this company. When you behave erratically in public, I defended someone from bigotry. That's not erratic. It's ethical." "It's also not your job," Morrison said. "Your job is to maximize shareholder value, not to play social justice warrior with random people you meet in restaurants." Victoria's hands clenched under the table. "Random people? Is that what we're calling customers now? Human beings worthy of basic dignity?" "Don't twist our words," Sutton snapped. "We're concerned about your priorities, about whether you're still committed to this company's success. I've dedicated the last 5 years of my life to this company. I've sacrificed time with my son, relationships, any semblance of a personal life. My commitment has never been in question." "Until now," Morrison said quietly. "Victoria, we care about you. Your father was my best friend. I watched you grow up, but we have a responsibility to the shareholders, to the employees. If you're going through something—" "I'm not going through anything except a board meeting that feels increasingly like an ambush." "It's not an ambush," Richard Chen spoke up for the first time. "It's a conversation about leadership style and public perception." Victoria shot him a look that promised later retribution for his carefully neutral stance. Morrison leaned forward. "We're proposing a temporary measure, just until things settle down. We'd like to appoint an interim co-CEO, someone to share the operational burden while you take some time to refocus." The room went silent. Victoria felt her blood turn to ice. "A co-CEO," she said flatly. "Temporary, just for the next quarter. Michael Reynolds has agreed to step in." Michael Reynolds, the COO who'd been gunning for her position since she'd hired him 2 years ago. The same man who'd encouraged her to take the defense contract, who'd argued that ethics were negotiable when money was involved. "This is a coup," Victoria said. "It's a strategic adjustment," Sutton corrected, "one that requires a majority board vote. We're prepared to vote today. Victoria looked around the table, counting allies and enemies. Richard would vote with her, but his loyalty was a political calculation. Morrison's vote was already lost. Sutton and his faction controlled 4 more seats. She needed 7 votes to maintain control. She didn't have 7 votes. I see, Victoria said. And if I refuse? Then we proceed to a vote on your removal as CEO entirely. This way, you maintain your position and your influence. We're offering you a graceful solution. There was nothing graceful about it. They were boxing her in, giving her the illusion of choice while stripping away her power. Victoria's phone buzzed in her pocket. She ignored it. It buzzed again, insistent. On the 3rd buzz, she pulled it out, ready to silence it, and saw Noah's school number. I need to take this, she said. Victoria, we're in the middle of... I said I need to take this. She stood and walked to the window, turning her back on the board. This is Victoria Hale. Ms. Hale, this is Principal Matthews. I'm calling about Noah. Victoria's heart seized. What happened? Is he hurt? No, he's not hurt, but we've had an incident. One of the other students made some unkind remarks about his father's death, and Noah became very upset. He's asking for you. I'll be right there. Ms. Hale, I should mention that Noah has been increasingly withdrawn this week. His teachers are concerned. We'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss... I'll be there in 20 minutes, Victoria interrupted and hung up. She turned back to the board. Every face showed varying degrees of disapproval. I have to go, she said. We're not finished here, Morrison protested. My son needs me. We're finished. Victoria, if you walk out of this meeting, then vote, Victoria said. Do what you're going to do. But I'm leaving. She grabbed her bag and walked toward the door. This is exactly what we're talking about, Sutton called after her. Priorities. You're choosing a child's tantrum over a board meeting. Victoria stopped with her hand on the door handle. She turned slowly. My son is asking for his mother because a classmate mocked his dead father. If you think that's less important than your power play, then you've confirmed every suspicion I've had about your lack of humanity. She didn't wait for a response. She walked out, through her assistant's area, past the executive offices, into the elevator that would take her away from the company she'd built and toward the child she'd neglected. The drive to Noah's school took 23 minutes through midtown traffic. Victoria used every second to berate herself. She'd been so focused on finding balance this week that she hadn't noticed her son was struggling, hadn't asked the right questions, hadn't seen the signs. Principal Matthews met her in the lobby. He's in my office. He's calmed down considerably, but he was quite upset earlier. What exactly happened? From what we've gathered during recess, some of the older children were discussing their fathers. When Noah mentioned his father had died, one of them said something cruel. Noah became very agitated and needed to be removed from the playground. Victoria's hands clenched. What did the child say? Ms. Hale, I don't think repeating it will... What did they say? Matthews sighed. They said Noah's father must not have loved him very much if he died and left him alone. That if his father really cared, he wouldn't have gotten sick. The words landed like physical blows. Victoria's vision went red at the edges. Who, she said very quietly, said this to my son? Ms. Hale, the child is 7 years old. They don't understand. Who? Timothy Henderson, Richard and Catherine Henderson's son. Of course. The same family she'd had dinner with at Aurelius. The same people who'd witnessed her defense of Ryan Cole and probably spent the week discussing it over cocktails, their disapproval filtering down to their child's cruelty. I want to see Noah, Victoria said. Her son sat in a chair too big for him, his feet not quite touching the ground. His eyes were red from crying, his face blotchy. When he saw Victoria, his composure crumbled. Mom, he whispered, and she was across the room in 3 strides, pulling him into her arms. I'm here, baby. I'm here. He said Daddy didn't love me. He said that's why he left. That's not true. That's not even close to true. Your father loved you more than anything in the world. His getting sick had nothing to do with love. Then why did he leave me? It was the question Noah had been asking in various ways since he was old enough to understand death. Victoria had given him age-appropriate answers about illness and bodies stopping working and people living on in memories. But right now, holding her sobbing child, those answers felt inadequate. I don't know, sweetheart. I don't know why bad things happen to good people, but I know your father would have stayed if he could. I know he'd give anything to be here with you now. I miss him. I know. I miss him too. They stayed like that for several minutes while Principal Matthews discreetly left the office. When Noah finally pulled back, his breathing had steadied. I tried to do what Ryan said, Noah told her, about being calm and clear, but I got so mad I couldn't think. Ryan said that? When we were playing Knights, he said real bravery isn't about fighting. It's about staying calm when you're scared or angry, but I couldn't. Victoria stroked his hair. Even adults can't always stay calm when someone hurts them. Ryan would understand that. Can we go see him? And Mia? Victoria checked her watch. It was barely 11. She should go back to the office, face whatever the board had decided, start planning her next move. That's what the old Victoria would have done. Prioritize the company, address the crisis, put her personal life on hold. But that Victoria's son called her ma'am and didn't know how to play. That Victoria was about to lose everything she'd built because she'd finally started to become human. Yes, Victoria said. Let's go see them. She checked Noah out of school, ignoring Principal Matthews' suggestion that they talk about his emotional state. They drove to Brooklyn in the middle of a Friday morning, Victoria's phone buzzing incessantly with calls from the office that she didn't answer. She didn't have Ryan's number, but she had his address. She parked on the familiar street and helped Noah out of the car. He was quieter now, his earlier distress settling into the exhausted calm that followed emotional storms. The brownstone looked different in daylight, shabbier maybe, but also more alive. Window boxes that had seemed empty at night now showed the green stems of bulbs planted for spring. Curtains in the window moved slightly, suggesting life inside. Victoria rang the bell. Footsteps. Then the door opened. Ryan stood there in jeans and a faded medical school t-shirt, surprise clear on his face. Victoria, I didn't expect... His eyes dropped to Noah, taking in the red-rimmed eyes and defeated posture. What happened? Bad day at school, Victoria said. Noah asked if we could visit. I'm sorry, we should have called first. No, it's fine, come in. Mia's at kindergarten until 3, but she'd be thrilled to know you came by. He stepped back to let them enter, then knelt to Noah's level. You okay, buddy? Noah shook his head, tears threatening again. You want to talk about it? Another head shake. That's okay too. Sometimes we just need to be somewhere safe until we feel better. You want to sit on the couch? I was about to make lunch. Noah nodded and shuffled to the couch, curling up in the corner like a small, wounded animal. Ryan led Victoria to the kitchen, far enough away that Noah couldn't hear, but close enough that they could see him. What happened? Ryan asked quietly. Victoria told him about the board meeting, about the call from the school, about what Timothy Henderson had said. As she talked, she watched Ryan's expression shift from concern to anger to something that looked like understanding. That's a hell of a morning, he said when she finished. I walked out of the board meeting. They were probably voting to remove me while I was driving here. Do you regret it? Victoria looked at her son, small and hurting on the couch. No, I don't. Good. Because that kid needs you a hell of a lot more than your board does. They might remove me as CEO. Would that be the worst thing? The question surprised her. I've spent 5 years building that company. It's my father's legacy. It's also killing you and hurting Noah. Ryan held up a hand before she could protest. I'm not judging, I'm observing. You were different when you came here the other night. Lighter, like you remembered how to breathe. I can't just walk away from everything I've built. I'm not suggesting you walk away. I'm suggesting you figure out what you're walking toward. Because right now it looks like you're running on a treadmill that's going faster than you can keep up with, and eventually you're going to collapse. The word collapse hung in the air like a premonition. Victoria's phone rang again. Margaret's number. Victoria silenced it. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. Balance everything. Be the CEO and the mother and the person I'm supposed to be. Maybe you're not supposed to be anything except yourself. Maybe that's enough. Before Victoria could respond, there was a commotion from the living room. Noah had stood up too quickly and stumbled, catching himself on the coffee table. But the sudden movement had triggered something. His breathing became rapid, his face pale. Ryan moved instantly, crossing the distance in 3 strides. Noah, look at me. Eyes right here. But Noah was spiraling, his breath coming in gasps, his hands shaking. Victoria recognized the signs. She'd seen them before, when Noah first started having panic attacks after Marcus died. Noah, baby, breathe with me, she started, but her own panic was rising, making her ineffective. Ryan took over with calm authority. Noah, we're going to count together. Can you do that? Just count with me. 1. Noah gasped for air, unable to speak. That's okay. You don't have to say it. Just listen. 1, 2, 3. Ryan's voice was steady, certain, the voice of someone who'd talked people through trauma countless times. 4, 5, 6. Slowly, Noah's breathing began to synchronize with Ryan's counting. His gasps became slower, more controlled. Good job. You're doing great. 7, 8, 9. Keep going with me. 10. By 20, Noah was breathing almost normally. By 30, the color had returned to his face. Ryan kept counting, kept Noah's focus locked on his voice, until the panic had fully receded. There you go, Ryan said softly. You're safe. You're okay. Nothing bad is happening right now. Noah collapsed forward into Ryan's arms, sobbing again, but this time from relief rather than fear. Ryan held him, one hand rubbing slow circles on his back, and looked at Victoria over Noah's head. In his eyes, she saw the truth she'd been avoiding. Her son needed more than she could give him alone. Needed stability, safety, someone who knew how to handle the trauma he carried. Needed what she'd been too proud or too scared to admit she couldn't provide. Thank you, Victoria whispered. Ryan just nodded and kept holding her son until the crying stopped. When Noah finally pulled back, exhausted from the emotional roller coaster of the morning, Ryan guided him back to the couch. You want to rest here for a bit? I'll make some lunch and we can watch a movie or something. Okay, Noah said quietly. Ryan got him settled with a blanket and returned to the kitchen where Victoria stood trying not to fall apart. How did you do that? She asked. Know exactly what to say? Practice. I've talked a lot of people through panic attacks. Soldiers mostly, but the technique's the same. He hasn't had one that bad in over a year. I thought he was getting better. Trauma doesn't work on a linear path. Something triggers it and it all comes flooding back. I don't know how to help him. You help him by being there, by not falling apart when he does, by finding people who know what they're doing and letting them help. Ryan paused. Has he seen anyone, a therapist? We tried, right after Marcus died. Noah hated it, said it made him feel broken. He was 4 years old. Maybe he needs to try again now that he's older, with someone who specializes in childhood grief. Victoria knew he was right, but admitting it felt like admitting failure. I thought I could handle it, thought if I just gave him enough structure, enough stability. Structure and stability are good, but they're not the same as processing grief, and you can't process it for him. Her phone rang again. This time it was Richard Chen. Victoria stared at it, knowing that answering meant facing whatever had happened at the board meeting. Not answering meant yanchiing the inevitable, but maintaining the small bubble of peace they'd found in this brownstone kitchen. She answered. Victoria, where are you? Richard's voice was tight with stress. I'm with Noah. What happened? They voted. 7-5. You're being removed as CEO effective immediately. Michael Reynolds is taking over. The words hit like physical blows, even though she'd known they were coming. 5 years of work, of sacrifice, of proving herself over and over, gone in one vote. I see, Victoria said, her voice remarkably steady. What about my position on the board? That stays, for now. But Victoria, they're coming for everything. Reynolds has already started talking about restructuring, about bringing in his own team. This isn't over. Maybe it should be. What? Maybe I've been fighting the wrong battle. Maybe some things are worth more than holding on to power. Richard was quiet for a moment. Who are you, and what have you done with Victoria Hale? I'm figuring that out, Victoria said and hung up. She looked at Ryan, who'd clearly heard enough to understand. They removed me. I'm sorry. Are you? You just told me the company was killing me. Losing something you built still hurts, even if it was destroying you. Ryan leaned against the counter. What are you going to do? I have no idea. It was the most honest thing Victoria had said in years. She had no idea what came next. No plan, no strategy, no carefully calculated path forward. Just her son sleeping on a stranger's couch, and the wreckage of the life she'd built scattered behind her. And somehow, in that moment of complete uncertainty, Victoria felt lighter than she had in 5 years. Ryan made grilled cheese sandwiches while Victoria sat at his small kitchen table, her phone face down beside her, silent for the first time in years. Noah had fallen asleep on the couch, emotionally exhausted, his small chest rising and falling with the deep breathing of someone finally finding peace. I don't think I've ever just sat in the middle of a weekday, Victoria said, watching Ryan work with the same patient efficiency he applied to everything. There's always something that needs doing, someone who needs a decision, a crisis that can't wait. And now? Ryan asked, flipping the sandwiches. Now there are probably 50 crises and I'm eating lunch in Brooklyn while my company gets dismantled by a man who thinks ethics are negotiable. She laughed, and it came out slightly wild. I should be panicking. Why am I not panicking? Maybe because you're too tired to panic. Or maybe because some part of you knows that what you lost wasn't worth what it was costing you to keep it. 5 years of my life, Ryan. 5 years of 18-hour days and sacrificing everything. My father built that company from nothing. And you turned it into something he never could have imagined. That doesn't disappear because they gave someone else your title. Ryan set a plate in front of her. Eat. You're no good to anyone if you collapse from low blood sugar. The grilled cheese was perfect. Crispy on the outside, melted on the inside, the kind of simple comfort food Victoria hadn't eaten in years. She took a bite and felt tears threatening for reasons she couldn't quite articulate. This is really good, she said. It's bread and cheese. It's more than that. It's normal. When was the last time I did something normal? Ryan sat across from her with his own sandwich. What does your normal usually look like? Protein shakes for breakfast, salads from the executive dining room for lunch, dinner with clients or at charity events or standing at my kitchen counter at 10 p.m. eating whatever my housekeeper left in the fridge. Victoria set down her sandwich. I can't remember the last time I actually cooked a meal or sat down to eat one without checking my phone. So start now. Just like that? Why not? You've got time. You've got a kid who needs you. You've got a life that's been on hold for 5 years, waiting for you to remember it exists. Victoria's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her mother calling. Eleanor Hale would have heard about the board meeting by now, would have opinions and advice, and probably a plan for Victoria's comeback. Victoria silenced the call. That's new, Ryan observed. What is? You ignoring a call. The other day you answered on the second ring even though we were having dinner. The other day I was still the CEO. I had responsibilities. You still have responsibilities. They just look different now. Before Victoria could respond, there was a knock at the door. Ryan frowned, clearly not expecting anyone, and went to answer it. Victoria heard voices. Ryan's calm and measured. Another voice she didn't recognize, male and urgent. Ryan, man, I need your help. It's Miguel. The voice cut off as the visitor spotted Victoria at the kitchen table. Oh, sorry, I didn't know you had company. It's fine, Ryan said. What's wrong with Miguel? The man at the door was young, maybe mid-20s, wearing construction gear covered in drywall dust. His face was tight with worry. He fell off a ladder at the site, landed wrong on his arm. Boss won't call an ambulance because Miguel doesn't have papers, and Miguel's scared to go to the hospital anyway. Ryan's expression shifted into something Victoria had only seen glimpses of, the doctor he used to be, focused and decisive. How bad? Bone's definitely broken. I can see it wrong through the skin. He's conscious but in a lot of pain. Where is he? Construction site on DeKalb. We've got him in the trailer, but I'll be there in 10 minutes. Ryan was already moving, grabbing a backpack from a closet that Victoria now realized was a medical kit. Victoria, I'm sorry, I have to. I'm coming with you, she said, standing. You don't have to. Noah's asleep and you might need help. I'm coming. Ryan looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Carlos, This is Victoria. Victoria Carlos. Let's go. They took Ryan's truck, an old Ford that had seen better days but ran smoothly. Carlos rode in the back, giving directions through the sliding rear window. Victoria sat in the passenger seat, acutely aware that this was completely outside anything she'd ever experienced. "You do this often?" she asked Ryan. "House calls to construction sites?" "More often than I should. Word gets around that there's a doctor who doesn't ask questions about insurance or immigration status. People call when they're desperate." "Is that legal?" Ryan shot her a look. "Is letting someone suffer because they can't afford treatment moral?" "I didn't mean, I know what you meant. And no, it's not exactly sanctioned by the medical board. But I'm not currently licensed to practice anyway, so what are they going to do? Take away my license twice?" The construction site was in a neighborhood that was clearly gentrifying. Old warehouses being converted to luxury condos, artisanal coffee shops next to bodegas that had been there for decades. The contrast was stark, the collision of two worlds that rarely acknowledged each other's existence. Carlos led them to a trailer that served as the site office. Inside, a man lay on a makeshift cot, his arm twisted at an angle that made Victoria's stomach turn. He was conscious but gray with pain, sweat soaking through his shirt. Ryan knelt beside him immediately, speaking in fluent Spanish. Victoria understood enough to catch the reassurances, the questions about pain level and sensation in his fingers. Miguel answered in short gasps, his eyes never leaving Ryan's face. "It's a compound fracture," Ryan said, switching back to English. "The bone's broken through the skin. He needs a hospital." "He won't go," Carlos said. "He's terrified of being deported. If we don't treat this properly, he could lose function in that hand. Worse, if it gets infected." Ryan didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Victoria pulled out her phone. "What if I make some calls? Get him into a hospital that won't ask questions?" Ryan looked at her in surprise. "You can do that?" "I just lost my position as CEO. I didn't lose my connections." Victoria was already scrolling through her contacts. "I know the director of Mount Sinai's board. They have a program for undocumented patients. Let me make this happen." While Victoria stepped outside to make calls, Ryan worked to stabilize Miguel's arm, his movements precise and confident. This was the surgeon he used to be, Victoria realized. This was what he'd walked away from. Not the skill, but the infrastructure, the hospital politics, the system that valued paperwork over people. It took 3 calls, but Victoria got it arranged. Mount Sinai would admit Miguel under their charity care program. No questions about immigration status, no police involvement. An ambulance was on its way. When she returned to the trailer, Ryan had Miguel's arm splinted and had started an IV with supplies from his medical kit that probably shouldn't have been in anyone's backpack. "You're full of surprises," Ryan said when she told him about the arrangements. "So are you. Where did you get IV supplies?" "I have a friend who works at an urgent care clinic. They look the other way when stuff goes missing." Ryan checked Miguel's vitals. "This is going to hurt when we move you, but the ambulance is coming. You're going to be okay." Miguel grabbed Ryan's hand with his good one, saying something in rapid Spanish that made Ryan's expression soften. "He says thank you," Carlos translated, though Victoria had understood that much. "He says you're a good man." "I'm just doing what anyone would do." "No," Victoria said quietly. "You're doing what anyone should do. Most people don't." The ambulance arrived 15 minutes later. The EMTs loaded Miguel carefully, and Ryan gave them a detailed handoff that made it clear he knew exactly what he was talking about. One of the EMTs recognized him. "Dr. Cole? I thought you... haven't seen you in years." "I'm not practicing anymore," Ryan said. "But this is Miguel Rodriguez, compound fracture of the right radius and ulna, possible nerve damage in the median nerve distribution. I've stabilized him, but he needs surgical intervention within the next few hours. We'll get him there." "Good to see you again, Doc. You were one of the best." After the ambulance left, Ryan sat on the trailer steps, suddenly looking exhausted. Victoria sat beside him, both of them covered in drywall dust and blood, watching the construction workers return to their jobs now that the crisis had passed. "You miss it," Victoria said. "Being a doctor." "Every single day," Ryan admitted. "But I don't miss the parts that made me choose between being present for Mia or being present for my patients. I don't miss the 70-hour weeks or the trauma of losing people I couldn't save. What if you could do it differently, on your own terms? There's no such thing. Medicine doesn't work on your own terms. It demands everything. So does running a company, Victoria said. Or so I thought. Maybe we've both been looking at it wrong. Maybe the question isn't how much you sacrifice, but what you're sacrificing for. Ryan looked at her. When did you get so philosophical? When I lost everything and realized I was relieved. Victoria laughed. I'm having an actual breakdown in a construction trailer in Brooklyn. My therapist would have a field day. You have a therapist? Had. I fired her when she suggested I was using work to avoid processing my husband's death. Victoria stood and brushed dust off her designer pants that would probably never be clean again. Turns out she was right. Her phone rang again. This time it was a number she didn't recognize. She almost ignored it, then something made her answer. Victoria Hale. Ms. Hale, this is Detective Sarah Martinez with the NYPD Financial Crimes Unit. I need to speak with you about some irregularities we've discovered at Hale Technologies. Victoria's blood went cold. What kind of irregularities? The kind that suggests someone's been moving money in ways that don't match your company's public filings. I'd prefer to discuss this in person. Can you come to our offices this afternoon? I'm not the CEO anymore. We're aware. That's actually why we're calling now. We've been investigating for 3 months, but we needed to wait until certain protections were no longer in place. Understanding hit like a physical blow. The board hadn't removed her because of the restaurant incident or her changing priorities. They'd removed her to get ahead of a financial investigation, and now she was the perfect scapegoat, the disgraced CEO, the unstable woman who'd lost focus, the easy target to blame for whatever crimes had been committed in her name. I'll be there in 2 hours, Victoria said and hung up. Ryan was watching her carefully. That didn't sound good. It wasn't. Someone's been embezzling from my company and the police think it might be me. Victoria's mind was already racing through possibilities. Michael Reynolds had been pushing for the defense contract. David Sutton had fought her on the ethics policies. Richard Chen had access to all the financial systems. What are you going to do? I'm going to find out who's been stealing from me and make sure they go to prison for it. Victoria felt the familiar rush of adrenaline, the clarity that came with a clear enemy and a winnable fight. This was territory she understood. Victoria, Ryan said carefully, you can't fight everyone. You just lost your position at your company. You have a son who had a panic attack this morning. Maybe this is a time to step back and let the authorities handle it. Step back and let someone else clean up my company? Let whoever did this get away with it while I take the fall? I'm not saying let them get away with it. I'm saying you don't have to be the one to bring them down. You can cooperate with the investigation, provide what you know, and focus on the parts of your life that actually matter. This matters. That company is my father's legacy. I'm not letting someone destroy it. Your father's legacy is you, not the company. You. Ryan stood to face her. And right now, your son is asleep on my couch because he had a breakdown at school, and you're about to charge off to fight another battle that will consume every ounce of energy you have left. What do you want me to do? Just give up? I want you to think about what you're fighting for. Is it the company? Is it pride? Is it because you don't know how to exist when you're not in combat mode? The words stung because they were true. Victoria had been fighting for so long to save her father's company after his death, to prove herself as CEO, to overcome the whispers that she'd only gotten the position because of nepotism, that she didn't know how to stop. I have to go to this meeting, she said. I have to at least understand what I'm being accused of. Okay, but Noah comes first. We pick him up, get him home safe, make sure he's okay. Then you deal with the police. Victoria wanted to argue, but she looked back at the trailer door, thinking of her son sleeping on a stranger's couch because his mother had prioritized a board meeting over his emotional crisis that morning. You're right, she said. Noah first. They drove back to Ryan's apartment in silence. Noah was awake when they arrived, looking small and lost on the couch. His face brightened when he saw them, then fell when he took in their appearance. Why are you all dirty? He asked. We helped someone who got hurt, Ryan explained. Sometimes helping people is messy. Is he okay? He will be. Noah seemed to accept this. He looked at Victoria with the tentative expression of a child testing whether his parent was still angry. Can we go home? Yes, baby. Let's go home. Ryan walked them to the car. You going to be okay? I honestly don't know, but thank you for everything today. Call me if you need anything. I mean it. Victoria nodded and helped Noah into the car. As they pulled away, she saw Ryan standing on the stoop, hands in his pockets, watching them leave. For a moment, she wished she could stay in that small apartment with its mismatched furniture and its sense of safety. But she had a meeting with the NYPD and a company to save, even if it was no longer technically hers. At home, Victoria settled Noah with his tablet and strict instructions to rest. Then she changed into fresh clothes, another power suit, another layer of armor, and prepared for battle. The NYPD Financial Crimes Unit occupied a floor of a building in Lower Manhattan. Detective Martinez was a woman in her early 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that reminded Victoria uncomfortably of herself. Thank you for coming in, Ms. Hale. I know this must be difficult given recent events at your company. Former company, Victoria corrected. I was removed as CEO this morning. Yes, we're aware. Interesting timing, isn't it? Martinez opened a file folder. Voici. We've been tracking unusual financial activity at Hale Technologies for approximately 4 months. Large sums moving between accounts, payments to shell companies, false vendor invoices. Someone's been systematically draining assets. How much? Approximately $47 million over the past 18 months. Victoria felt the room tilt. 47 million. The activity increased significantly after you rejected the defense contract with Titan Security. Does that timeline mean anything to you? It meant everything. The board had been furious when she'd walked away from a $200 million deal because Titan wanted to use her company's technology for surveillance that Victoria considered unethical. David Sutton had called her naive. Michael Reynolds had suggested she was letting personal feelings override business judgment. Who had access to move that kind of money? Victoria asked. According to your company's records, the CFO and the COO both had authorization for transfers above $10 million. But the real question is who knew the board would remove you before the investigation went public? Understanding crystallized. Michael Reynolds. He's your primary suspect. We can't discuss ongoing investigations, but I can tell you that we'll need access to your personal records, emails, any communication with other executives about financial decisions. You think I was involved? We have to investigate all possibilities. You had motive, saving the company your father built. You had means, complete access to all financial systems. You had opportunity, 5 years as CEO with minimal oversight. I also had a board that questioned my every decision and a CFO who reviewed every dollar I spent. Victoria leaned forward. Detective, I understand you have to investigate me, but I'm telling you right now, I didn't take that money. And I'm going to help you prove who did. Martinez studied her for a long moment. Why should I believe you? Because I just lost my position at my company. Because my reputation is about to be destroyed whether I'm guilty or not. Because I have a 7-year-old son who's already lost his father, and I'll be damned if I let him watch his mother go to prison for something she didn't do. The detective's expression softened fractionally. Okay, let's start with what you know about Michael Reynolds' financial activities. They talked for 2 hours. Victoria walked Martinez through every decision, every objection Reynolds had raised, every time he'd pushed her toward choices that prioritized profit over principles. She provided names of board members who might have been complicit, dates of meetings where financial strategies had been discussed, access codes to systems that would show who'd actually authorized the transfers. By the time she left the police station, it was after 6 p.m. Victoria's phone had 37 missed calls, 22 text messages, and a voicemail from her mother that started with Victoria Eleanor Hale, you call me back this instant. She ignored all of it and drove back to Brooklyn. Ryan answered the door in old sweatpants and a t-shirt that had World's Okayest Dad printed on it, clearly surprised to see her again. Is everything okay? He asked. No, everything is completely falling apart. My company is being embezzled, I'm a suspect in a financial crimes investigation, and my entire professional life is imploding. Victoria took a breath. Can I come in? Ryan stepped back wordlessly. Victoria found herself in his living room again, the space that had become oddly familiar over just a few days. Mia was home from school, playing with building blocks in the corner. She looked up and waved enthusiastically. "Hi, Ms. Victoria. Do you want to build a castle?" "Maybe in a little bit, sweetie. Is it okay if I talk to your dad first?" "Okay. I'm making a tower that reaches the moon." Ryan led Victoria to the kitchen. "You want to talk about it?" "I don't know what I want. I just know I couldn't go home to my empty penthouse and pretend everything was fine." Victoria sat at the table that was becoming familiar. "They think I stole $47 million from my own company." "Did you?" "Of course not." "Then they'll figure that out. Innocent people don't go to prison." Victoria laughed bitterly. "Yes, they do. All the time, especially when they're convenient scapegoats for people with power and connections." "So fight back. You're good at fighting." "I'm tired of fighting, Ryan. I'm so tired." Victoria put her head in her hands. "I don't want to be the warrior anymore. I don't want every day to be a battle. I just want—" She stopped, unsure what she wanted. Peace? Simplicity? A life that looked more like Ryan's small apartment and less like her pristine penthouse? Ryan sat across from her. "You want to know what I think?" "I'm not sure I do, but tell me anyway." "I think you're in freefall right now, and it's terrifying because you're used to being in control. But maybe freefall is exactly what you need. Maybe you need to hit bottom so you can figure out who you are when you're not CEO Victoria Hale." "And who is that?" "I don't know, but I think she's probably pretty interesting." Victoria looked at this man who'd given up everything for his daughter, who treated construction workers with the same care he'd once given to soldiers, who made grilled cheese sandwiches and built blanket forts, and somehow made her believe that maybe, just maybe, there was a different way to live. "Can I stay for dinner?" she asked. Ryan smiled. "We're having Mia's favorite, mac and cheese from a box." "That sounds perfect." And somehow, impossibly, it was. Over boxed mac and cheese that tasted better than any five-star meal Victoria had eaten in the past year, Mia told elaborate stories about her kindergarten class and the caterpillar they were raising that would turn into a beautiful butterfly any day now, Daddy says so. Noah listened with rapt attention, occasionally adding his own observations about butterflies he'd read about in one of his science books. Victoria watched them interact with a mixture of joy and heartbreak. This was what childhood was supposed to look like. Easy conversation, shared excitement over simple things, the comfortable presence of someone who had time to actually listen. "Mom, can I come here after school sometimes?" Noah asked. "Mia says they have art class on Tuesdays and anyone can come." "That's at the community center," Ryan clarified. "Free program for neighborhood kids. Mia loves it." "I paint pictures of unicorns," Mia announced. "Last week I made one with 17 colors." "That sounds wonderful," Victoria said, then hesitated. Her instinct was to check her calendar to calculate commitments and schedule conflicts. But her calendar had just been wiped clean. She had no company to run, no meetings to attend, just a son who wanted to paint unicorns. "Yes," she said. "We can do that." Noah's face lit up in a way that made Victoria's chest ache. How many times had she said no to similar requests? How many opportunities for simple happiness had she missed while chasing the next deal, the next victory? After dinner, the children retreated to Mia's room to play while Victoria helped Ryan clean up. It was becoming a ritual, this quiet time in his kitchen, washing dishes while the chaos of the world stayed locked outside. "You're going to fight this," Ryan said. It wasn't a question. "The investigation? Yes. I'm not going to prison for something I didn't do." "I meant the company. You're going to try to take it back." Victoria set down the dish she'd been drying. "I don't know. This morning I would have said yes without hesitation. Now I'm not sure what I'm fighting for anymore." "What changed?" "Everything. Nothing. I don't know." Victoria leaned against the counter. "I spent 5 years building that company into something my father would be proud of. But he's dead, Ryan. He's never going to know what I accomplished. And in the process of making him proud, I've become someone I'm not sure I like very much." "You're being too hard on yourself." "Am I?" "My son had a panic attack this morning, and I didn't know how to help him. You did. A stranger knew my child better in one moment than I've known him in 7 years. That's not fair to yourself. You were there. You came when he needed you. After I chose a board meeting over him, again." Ryan turned to face her fully. "Victoria, you made a mistake. You made a lot of mistakes. Welcome to being human. The question is what you do next. Before Victoria could respond, her phone rang. She glanced at it. Richard Chen again. This time she answered. Richard. Victoria, thank God. I've been trying to reach you all day. We need to talk. If you're calling to explain why you didn't vote with me this morning, I voted against you to stay on the board. Someone needed to be on the inside, and I couldn't help you from the outside. Richard's voice was urgent, almost frantic. I've been digging through the financial records since the meeting. Victoria, it's worse than we thought. I know about the embezzlement. The police already contacted me. It's not just embezzlement. Reynolds has been setting you up for months. Every questionable transaction has your digital signature on it. Every authorization came through your account. Victoria's blood ran cold. That's not possible. I didn't authorize. I know you didn't, but on paper it all traces back to you. He's been incredibly thorough. If this goes to trial, you're looking at serious prison time. How did he access my accounts? That's what I've been trying to figure out. But Victoria, there's more. The board is meeting again Monday. They're going to vote to remove you from the board entirely and file criminal charges. They want you completely out before the investigation goes public. Victoria felt the walls closing in. They're throwing me to the wolves. They're protecting themselves. If they can paint you as a rogue CEO who went off the rails, they're insulated from liability. Richard paused. I'm trying to help, but I need you to understand how bad this is. Reynolds has been planning this for a long time. Why are you telling me this? Because I've worked with you for 3 years and I know you're not a thief. Because someone needs to be on your side. And because if they can do this to you, none of us are safe. After she hung up, Victoria stood in Ryan's kitchen, feeling the full weight of her situation. She was being framed for embezzlement. Her company was about to publicly accuse her of crimes she didn't commit. And she had approximately 72 hours to prove her innocence before the board voted to destroy what was left of her reputation. Bad news, Ryan observed. The worst. Someone's been using my accounts to steal from my own company and make it look like I authorized everything. The board is meeting Monday to remove me entirely and file criminal charges. Can they do that? With the right evidence, they can do anything. Victoria started pacing. I need to get ahead of this. I need to find proof that Reynolds accessed my accounts, that he forged my authorizations. Victoria, stop. I can't stop. I have 3 days to stop, Ryan repeated, more firmly. He caught her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. You're spiraling. You're doing exactly what you always do, trying to solve everything yourself, trying to control an uncontrollable situation. What else am I supposed to do? Ask for help. Trust someone besides yourself for once. Victoria wanted to argue, but she was so tired. Tired of fighting, tired of being strong, tired of carrying everything alone. I don't know how, she admitted quietly. Start by telling me what you need. What did she need? Victoria had spent so long focused on what she wanted, success, respect, her father's legacy, that she'd lost track of what she actually needed. I need someone to watch Noah Monday while I deal with the board meeting. I need someone who can access my company's servers and find evidence of tampering. I need someone who can help me not fall apart while my entire life implodes. She laughed bitterly. And I need all of that from someone I've known for less than a week, which is insane. Not as insane as you think, Ryan said. I can watch Noah, and I might know someone who can help with the technical stuff. Who? A friend from my military days. He does cybersecurity now. Civilian contractor. Very good at finding things people don't want found. That's illegal. So is framing someone for embezzlement. You want to fight fair or you want to win? Victoria had built her career on fighting fair, on doing things the right way even when it was harder. But the right way had gotten her removed from her company and set up to take the fall for someone else's crimes. I want to win, she said. Ryan made the call. 20 minutes later, his friend Marcus, no relation to your late husband, and yes, I know it's weird, showed up with a laptop and an energy drink, ready to commit several federal crimes in the name of justice. Marcus was exactly what Victoria expected from someone with Ryan's military background. Efficient, focused, and completely unimpressed by her former CEO's status. So you got set up, Marcus said, his fingers already flying across the keyboard. Happens more than you'd think. Corporate espionage is easier than ever with digital signatures and remote access. Give me your login credentials. I can't just give you access to company systems. You want my help or not? Victoria provided the information. She was already facing criminal charges for things she didn't do. What was one more potential crime? For the next 3 hours, while the children played and Ryan made coffee, Marcus worked his way through Hale Technologies' systems with the ease of someone who'd broken into much more secure networks. Got it, he finally announced. Someone's been accessing your account from a secondary location. IP address traces to Michael Reynolds' home office. Sloppy, really. He didn't even use a VPN. Can you prove it was him and not someone using his computer? Better? I can prove he accessed your accounts during times when you were documentably somewhere else. Look, this authorization for a $3 million transfer happened last Tuesday at 2:15 p.m. Where were you? Victoria thought back. Tuesday afternoon. I was at Noah's school. Parent-teacher conference. Can you prove that? I signed in at the office. They keep logs. Marcus grinned. Perfect. I've got about 40 instances like this. Times when money was moved under your authorization while you were in meetings, on calls with witnesses, or otherwise provably not at your computer. That's enough to clear me? That's enough to show someone else was accessing your accounts. Combined with the IP evidence and the pattern of transactions, all of which benefited shell companies Reynolds set up, yeah, you've got a case. Relief flooded through Victoria, so intense it made her dizzy. Thank you. Seriously, thank you. Thank Ryan. He saved my life in Kandahar. I owe him pretty much everything. Marcus started transferring files to a secure drive. I'm going to package all of this up for you. Take it to the cops. Let them handle it from here. The board is meeting Monday. Then you crash their meeting with evidence that their new CEO is the actual criminal. Tends to change the conversation. After Marcus left, Victoria sat at Ryan's kitchen table with the evidence drive in front of her, trying to process what had just happened. She had proof of her innocence. She had ammunition to bring down Michael Reynolds. She had exactly what she needed to reclaim her position and destroy the people who tried to destroy her. So why did she feel so hollow? You're not celebrating, Ryan observed, sitting across from her. I should be. I have everything I need to win. But I keep thinking about what you said, about what I'm fighting for. Victoria turned the drive over in her hands. If I go back, if I reclaim my position, nothing changes. I'm still the CEO who works 80-hour weeks. Noah still calls me ma'am. I still miss every moment that matters. So don't go back. Just walk away. Let Reynolds win? I didn't say let him win. I said don't go back to being who you were. Ryan leaned forward. You can expose Reynolds, clear your name, make sure he goes to prison for what he did, and then you can choose what comes next. You don't have to reclaim your old life. What else would I do? Whatever you want, that's the point. You're not defined by that company anymore. You can build something new. Victoria looked at this man who'd rebuilt his entire life from scratch after losing everything, who'd chosen presence over prestige, and found peace in the process. I don't know how to be anything except what I've been, she said. Then learn. You've got time. The weekend passed in a strange limbo. Victoria spent Saturday with Noah, really with him, no phone calls or emails or divided attention. They went to the community center for art class, where Noah painted a picture of a castle defended by knights, while Mia added unicorns to the scene. They had pizza for lunch and went to a playground where Victoria actually pushed her son on the swings instead of checking her watch every 5 minutes. Sunday, Victoria met with Detective Martinez and turned over Marcus's evidence. The detective's expression shifted from skepticism to grim satisfaction as she reviewed the files. This is solid, Martinez said. We'll bring Reynolds in for questioning Monday morning. With this evidence, we can get a warrant for his financial records, his computers, everything. What about the board meeting? What about it? They're voting to remove me entirely and file criminal charges. If you arrest Reynolds first, Ms. Hale, we don't time arrests around corporate politics. We arrest people when we have sufficient evidence and the legal authority to do so. I understand, but if there's any way you could move before 9 a.m. Monday, Martinez studied her for a long moment. You want to walk into that meeting with Reynolds in custody, don't you? Show them they backed the wrong horse. I want them to understand that they don't get to destroy people's lives without consequences. I can't promise anything, but we'll move as quickly as we can. Monday morning, Victoria dressed in her sharpest suit and her highest heels. Armor for what might be her last battle, at least in this particular war. She'd arranged for Ryan to pick Noah up from school and keep him for the afternoon, just in case things went badly. The Hale Technologies building looked the same as always, 42 stories of glass and steel, her father's dream made manifest. But as Victoria rode the elevator to the executive floor, she felt like a stranger visiting a place she used to know. The boardroom was already full when she arrived. Every seat occupied, every face turned toward her with varying degrees of hostility, pity, or carefully maintained neutrality. Michael Reynolds sat at the head of the table, her seat, the one her father had occupied before her, looking supremely confident. "Victoria," he said with false warmth, "we weren't sure you'd come. Wouldn't miss it for the world." Victoria took the only empty seat, the one farthest from the head of the table, the position of someone without power, without voice. "Let's begin," James Morrison said. "We're here to vote on Victoria Hale's removal from the board of directors and to discuss filing criminal charges in relation to financial irregularities discovered in..." The boardroom door opened. Detective Martinez walked in, flanked by 2 uniformed officers. "I'm sorry to interrupt," Martinez said, though she didn't sound sorry at all. "I'm looking for Michael Reynolds." Reynolds' confident expression flickered. "I'm Michael Reynolds. What's this about?" "Mr. Reynolds, you're under arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit fraud." Martinez began reading him his rights while the room erupted in chaos. "This is absurd," Reynolds sputtered. "I'm the victim here. Victoria is the one who... We have evidence that you accessed Ms. Hale's accounts without authorization and used her credentials to transfer $47 million to shell companies under your control," Martinez continued calmly. "You have the right to remain silent. This is a setup. She's setting me up because I replaced her." "You replaced her 3 days ago. This investigation has been ongoing for 3 months. Martinez nodded to the officers, who moved to handcuff Reynolds. "We can do this easy or hard, Mr. Reynolds. Your choice." Reynolds looked around the table, searching for allies, but found only shock and dawning horror. The board members were realizing what Victoria had already known. They'd removed the wrong CEO. As the officers led Reynolds out, still protesting his innocence, the boardroom fell into stunned silence. Finally, Morrison spoke. "Victoria, we had no idea. The evidence against you seemed convenient," Victoria finished, "because Reynolds made it convenient. He's been planning this for months, manipulating all of you into removing me so he could take over before the investigation went public. If we'd known, you would have what? Believed me? Given me the benefit of the doubt?" Victoria stood, placing both hands on the table. "For 5 years, I've led this company with integrity. I've grown revenue, improved employee satisfaction, and maintained ethical standards even when it cost us profitable contracts. And the moment someone presented evidence that I might have made a mistake, you threw me out without even asking for my side of the story." "We were trying to protect the company," Sutton said weakly. "You were trying to protect yourselves. There's a difference." Victoria pulled out her phone and placed it on the table. "Detective Martinez has all the evidence of Reynolds' fraud. You'll need to cooperate fully with the investigation. The company's reputation is going to take a hit when this goes public." "We'll need leadership to navigate this crisis," Morrison said. "Victoria, we were wrong. We should have trusted you. If you're willing to resume your position as CEO, I'm not." The words hung in the air like a grenade. "What?" Morrison looked genuinely confused. "I'm not willing to resume my position. I'm resigning from the board, effective immediately." "Victoria, you can't. The company needs you. Your father..." "My father is dead," Victoria said, and the bluntness of it silenced the room. "He's been dead for 9 years. I've spent those 9 years trying to live up to a legacy that was never mine to begin with. I built this company into what it is today. Not him, me. And I'm choosing to walk away from it." "But why?" Richard Chen asked. "You won. You cleared your name. Reynolds is going to prison. You can have everything back." Because having everything back means sacrificing my son again. It means missing his childhood while I work 80-hour weeks. It means becoming the person I was last week, successful, powerful, and completely disconnected from anything that actually matters. Victoria picked up her phone. I'm recommending that you appoint Richard as interim CEO. He's been loyal to this company, and he had the courage to stay on the board to help me, even when it would have been easier to walk away. Under his leadership, you might actually become the ethical company I tried to build. She walked toward the door, then paused. I'll be available for the investigation and for transition meetings. But I'm done being defined by this company. I'm done sacrificing my life for quarterly earnings. I'm done. The elevator ride down felt like shedding weight with each floor. By the time Victoria reached the lobby, she felt lighter than she had in 5 years. She walked out of the Hale Technologies building and didn't look back. Her phone rang immediately. Her mother, no doubt having heard about the board meeting. Victoria sent it to voicemail. She'd deal with Eleanor Hale's reaction later. Right now, she had somewhere else to be. She drove to Brooklyn on autopilot, barely registering the familiar route. When she knocked on Ryan's door, he opened it with a knowing expression. How'd it go? Reynolds was arrested. I quit. Ryan's eyebrows rose. You quit. I quit. Victoria started laughing, and once she started, she couldn't stop. I walked away from a billion-dollar company because I'd rather paint unicorns with my son. That's the best reason I've ever heard for quitting anything. Noah appeared behind Ryan, his face lighting up when he saw Victoria. Mom, guess what? Mia and I built a rocket ship out of cardboard boxes. Did you? Can I see it? It's in the backyard. Come on. Victoria let her son pull her through the apartment to the small backyard, where indeed a magnificent cardboard rocket ship stood, decorated with marker drawings and held together with what looked like an entire roll of tape. We're going to the moon, Mia announced. Do you want to come? I would love to come to the moon, Victoria said. She climbed into the cardboard rocket with her son and a little girl who'd drawn them holding hands, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, Victoria Hale felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. That evening, after the children had tired themselves out with space exploration and fallen asleep watching a movie, Victoria and Ryan sat in his small kitchen drinking tea. So what now? Ryan asked. I have no idea. I've never not had a plan before. How does it feel? Terrifying. Also kind of amazing. You'll figure it out. You're good at figuring things out. Victoria smiled. I was thinking, Noah mentioned you used to do medical work in underserved communities. The construction workers who call you when they get hurt, the people without insurance. Yeah, occasionally, when I can. What if you could do it more than occasionally? What if there was funding for a clinic, a real one, where people could get care regardless of immigration status or ability to pay? Ryan set down his cup. That would require significant capital. Malpractice insurance alone. I have significant capital, and I'm about to have a lot of free time. Victoria leaned forward. I can't be a doctor, but I can build infrastructure. I can navigate regulations and secure funding and create something that actually helps people instead of just making money. You want to fund a free clinic? I want to fund whatever you think would make the biggest difference. A clinic, a mobile medical unit, a network of providers who work with undocumented communities. You tell me what's needed, and I'll make it happen. Ryan was quiet for a long moment. You're serious. Completely serious. I spent 5 years building something that made rich people richer. I'd like to spend the next 5 years building something that actually matters. What about Noah? He'll be part of it. I want him to see what it looks like when someone uses their privilege to help instead of just accumulate more. I want him to grow up knowing that success isn't about how much money you make or how powerful you become. And what is it about? Victoria thought about the past week, about the moment her carefully constructed life had fallen apart and revealed something better underneath. It's about being there when someone needs you. It's about choosing presence over prestige. It's about painting unicorns and building cardboard rockets and making grilled cheese sandwiches that taste like home. She met Ryan's eyes. It's about standing up for strangers in restaurants because it's the right thing to do, even when it costs you everything. Ryan smiled. When you put it that way, how can I say no? You can't. I'm very persuasive. I've noticed. They talked until late, sketching out plans on napkins, dreaming about what they could build together. Not a romance, not yet. They were both too scarred, too cautious for that. But a partnership, a shared vision, a way forward that looked nothing like the lives they'd lived before. 3 months later, Victoria stood in the lobby of the Brooklyn Community Health Center, a renovated warehouse that had been transformed into a state-of-the-art medical facility offering free care to anyone who needed it, no questions asked. Ryan's name was on the director's door, though he'd argued against it. Mia's drawings decorated the pediatric waiting room. Noah volunteered after school, helping in the art therapy program they'd started for children dealing with trauma. The opening ceremony was modest. No corporate sponsors, no society page coverage, just the people who would use the clinic and the volunteers who would run it. But as Victoria watched Ryan greet patients with the same gentle competence he'd shown Mia, and saw Noah teaching a shy immigrant child how to paint, she felt a pride that dwarfed anything she'd experienced in her corporate life. Eleanor Hale had eventually come around, though she'd needed several long conversations and one very frank discussion about Victoria's actual happiness versus her perceived obligations. Victoria's brother had taken over as chairman of Hale Technologies Board, bringing fresh perspective while maintaining the ethical standards Victoria had fought for. Michael Reynolds was awaiting trial, facing multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. The company had survived the scandal, strengthened by Richard Chen's transparent leadership and commitment to the values Victoria had instilled. And Victoria herself had discovered that being powerless in the corporate world didn't mean being powerless in life. She'd found her power in different places, in the clinic that bore her father's name, but served a purpose he never would have imagined, in the son who now smiled freely and slept without nightmares, in the community that had welcomed her not as a billionaire CEO, but as someone willing to show up and help. "Mom," Noah called from across the lobby. "Can Mia come over for dinner? We're making that pasta thing Ryan taught us." "Of course she can." Ryan joined her, wiping his hands on his lab coat. "You know you're creating a monster, right? They're going to want to cook dinner together every night." "I can think of worse fates." "So can I." Ryan looked around the lobby, at the families seeking care, at the volunteers greeting them with dignity and respect. "Thank you for all of this. Thank you for teaching me what actually matters. I didn't teach you anything. You already knew, you just needed to remember." That evening, in Ryan's kitchen that had become as familiar as her own, Victoria helped 2 5-year-olds and 1 7-year-old make pasta from scratch. Flour covered every surface. Laughter filled the air. And when they finally sat down to eat their imperfect, wonderful creation, Victoria looked around the table at this makeshift family she'd found and realized she'd never been richer. Her phone buzzed with a message from Richard Chen. Quarterly earnings were up, employee satisfaction at record highs, and the ethics audit had come back clean. Hale Technologies was thriving without her. Victoria smiled and silenced her phone. Some things could wait until tomorrow. Right now, she had pasta to eat and children to listen to and a life to live that finally felt like it belonged to her. Outside the window, the Brooklyn evening settled into dusk. Somewhere across the city, the Hale Technologies building stood tall against the skyline, a monument to ambition and success. But here, in this small apartment, filled with love and laughter and the simple comfort of shared meals, Victoria Hale had found something her billions never bought her. She'd found home.